From WYPR in Baltimore, this is The Signal. I'm Andy Beanstalk. We're going to move next to a story about the inspiring power, the global reach, and the timeless influence of Beatlemania. This week, The Signal's Aaron Henkin introduces us to a talented international classical guitar composer and Beatles fan who's come to Baltimore from his home country of Croatia.
When you ask Branimir Krstic how he got started playing classical guitar, he'll confess to you that it wasn't by choice.
I think it was really a coincidence because I wanted to play electric guitar in a rock band, but my dad wanted me to learn classical basics first, and then I got stuck there.
So you had this understandable fantasy about getting an electric guitar and pursuing a rock and roll career, but your dad said, first you have to learn how to play classical guitar. And you agreed to this.
I agreed to that, and actually later, rather quickly, I lost interest in playing overly loud.
What do you think it was about the classical guitar, once you got your hands on it, that really took hold on you and got into your blood?
I think that classical guitar is a very expressive instrument in the sense that it is capable of producing lots of colors, and there are lots of very interesting effects that can be performed on classical guitar.
As soon as he finished high school, Branimir Krstic left behind his homeland of Croatia, what was then actually a crumbling Yugoslavia, and he ended up in Germany, studying music at the Cologne School of Composition. Branimir was already an accomplished player and only getting more talented. He says for much of his life he spent more waking hours with his guitar than without. Under the tutelage of renowned mentors, Branimir stretched his wings and began creating his own original compositions for classical guitar. Branimir also created a set of classical guitar compositions inspired by German composer Franz Liszt's piano work, Liebestraum, Dreams of Love. Before long, the young composer stretched even further, creating an album's worth of classical guitar adaptations of traditional Croatian folk songs like this Adagio. From Croatian folk music, Branimir took his classical guitar into even more esoteric realms. This is an example of his avant-garde work from his album New Musiek. Suffice it to say, Branimir Krstic wasn't exactly topping the charts at iTunes with these releases. He recorded these albums himself and published them on his independent label, Pineapple Music. They were his artwork, whether there was an audience or not. This record label was his first entrepreneurial endeavor upon arriving here in the U.S. He came here in 2002. He also took up teaching music to help pay the bills. And then one day, he had a revelation. It was a love of rock and roll that had got him into classical guitar in the first place.
After being here for a few months and so on, I came to the conclusion that maybe it would be better to try something slightly bigger. And then I was thinking of starting really from where my musical roots are, and if I said that they were in rock music, then why don't do my favorite album?
That album was the Beatles' 1966 magnum opus, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and Branimir took it upon himself to bring it to the ears of the world for the very first time on solo classical guitar.
That's also a favorite album for very, very many people, and also album which is considered by many critics to be the greatest. I think it is greatest in the history. what is the best, it's very subjective, but I think that's certainly the most influential one. And obviously Beatles have lots of musical substance, lots of, let's say, meat that one can really work with.
Branimir dutifully adapted all 13 tracks from the original album. There's With a Little Help from My Friends, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, and When I'm 64. Since he put out this album back in 2004, it's been his top-selling record. Well, I wonder if it ever frustrates you, or amuses you at least, to think that, after you've trained and studied so much and created so many original compositions, that your biggest splash from a merchandise perspective is with this Beatles cover album.
I'm actually not surprised, I'm not frustrated, and it's not unexpected. I'm glad that I was able to do something nice about music of Beatles, which I would be very happy if there were more things like that in any field of music, whether it's rock music or country music or any music, because I'm comfortable with any genre. And I think that is probably the direction in which also classical musicians are going to go. The borders are going to open up between genres. Not so much that I'm going to go on stage or any other classical musician to play electric guitar or in the rock band, but I think there will be much more openness between genres. And it's not illogical, because in other professions people get trained for something, and then in their professional lives they do completely different things based on what they have learned. And classical musicians very often are expected to do until the end of their professional lives exactly the same things in exactly the same way they did at the conservatory, which I think probably is going to change.
Croatian classical guitarist and Beatles fan Branimir Krstic. He's yet to hear official word from any of the surviving members of the Fab Four about his tribute, but he says people close to the source have expressed their appreciation. You can find out more about Branimir and his music online at our website, wypr.org/The Signal. For The Signal, I'm Aaron Henkin.
And that wraps it up for this week's broadcast of The Signal. We'd love to hear your thoughts and questions about today's program, and we're always looking for new and interesting stories to air on future shows, so you can reach us through our website, wypr.org/The Signal. That's also where you'll find a link to podcasts of recent stories from the program. The Signal is an original production of Your Public Radio in Baltimore. Our web editor